Thank you for tuning in once again. This is the invasion of Sicily part 2. And in part 1 we ended with my father and his mates walking down the beach near Fontana Bianca on the east coast of Sicily. The beach was called George Beach as far as the sailors were concerned. And at George Beach they found a LST that was smoldering, and the bows were completely gone. And they found a sailor sound asleep in his hammock. After waking him up, they learned that he hadn't heard a thing, but the rest of the crew was missing. My father continues with the following. Later we moved into a limestone cave, dank and wet, but safe from bombs. We hung a barrage balloon over it, about 1,000 feet up, and one sailor got drunk and shot it down, but we had 50 to 60 feet of limestone over our heads. We used a pail of sand saturated with gasoline to heat our meals, if any food was available. I had 27 days at Sicily living on tomatoes and bully beef. I swore I would kick the first bull I saw in Canada right in the posterior if I got back. Everywhere I looked, there were anti-personnel hand-sized grenades that needed only to be touched to go off. They were built to maim and not to kill, because it takes men to lift the wounded and take care of them, and that could cause other casualties. But if you're dead, you're dead. We threw tomatoes at a lot and exploded them in that manner. We had a hospital ship with us named the Alhambra, my father wrote. I looked it up and it spelled Talamba, with many nurses and doctors aboard. She came in to about 3 miles in daytime and went out to 7 miles and lighted up like a city at night. No one was to bomb a hospital ship, and for a few days on end we took the wounded out to her, but many got glider pilots, many of them being glider pilots with purple berets. Never a sound out of them, no matter how badly they were hurt. Mostly Scottish soldiers. One night we saw what happened to be a tremendous bonfire in the east, offshore, a long way out. In the morning, the Talamba was gone. Nursing sisters, doctors, wounded and all. 790 were killed or drowned. The Germans had either bombed or torpedoed her that night. So goes war, my father says. Just another sidelight, he adds, we had acquired a portable record player in a green round box with an ample supply of records by Artie Shaw, Glenn Miller, Vaughn Monroe, and Tommy Dorsey. We had to wind it up by crank, and we cranked it so much we broke the handle. Then we had to spin the record with our index finger. It was quite a chore to get the correct speed, but with time we achieved it. How I wish I had that record player and records today. One morning in Sicily, I woke up in my hammock in our cave. The hammock was slung between 2 limestone piers and above the lizards, and I saw hurricane planes taking off just a short distance away. We now began working 8 hours on and 8 hours off. When we were pretty well unloaded, I decided, on my 8 hours off, to investigate the airstrip, and behold, they were Canadians with hurricane fighters. I arrived about supper time and explained who I was and was invited for a supper of tomatoes and bully beef. Not that again, he adds. I have no mess fanny or spoon, I said, and the cook told me there were some fellows washing theirs up and to ask one of them for the loan of their mess fanny and spoon. So I walked over, tapped a man's shoulder, and asked if I could borrow his equipment. The man straightened up and said, sure, and it turned out to be Bill Donnelly from my own hometown of Norwich, Ontario. I got my Oppo or chum, able-bodied sailor Burl McIntyre from the cave, and did the Vino ever run that night? Small world. So when we had enough, Bill crawled into his hole in the ground, covered himself with mosquito netting, and we headed back to the cave. Overhead, Beaufort night fighters were giving Jerry fighters and bombers hell. We felt the courage given us by the Vino and slept quite soundly in our dank old cave till morning rolled around again. After approximately 27 days, I came down with severe chills and then got dysentery. I was shipped to Malta on the Ulster Monarch, and an intern came around and handed me 26 pills. I inquired, "How many doses is that?" "Just one," he replied. At Malta, I was let loose on my own to find Hill 10 Hospital. I did after a while, and they asked me my trouble. I said, "Dysentery." "Oh, well, we'll soon cure that," they said. "And how?" "We won't give you anything to eat." So for 4 days, all I got was water and pills, and soon I was cured, though very weak. I thought of those poor devils in the desert. And he means sailors like himself who were at HMS Saunders, and they had a devil of a time in the desert with dysentery. When I felt better, they sent me to a tent where I got regular meals. I saw an Air Force newspaper, and on the front was a picture of Bob Alexander of Norwich, a school chum. But Bob returned to the fray and was lost on one of his bombing missions. How sorry I was to hear that news. He had already done so much. Soon all the boys returned to Malta, and we prepared for Italy, though all our barges stayed in Sicily. We took a landing ship tank, LST, back to Mille Marina, Sicily, and if memory serves me correctly, attacked Italy at Reggio di Calabria across Messina Straits on my birthday, September 6, 1943. My father was off by about 3 days. The invasion of Italy began on September 3rd, 1943. It was called Operation Baytown, and it took place at the toe of the boot of Italy.